This is Caffeinated Combat. We have a lot of stuff to catch up on. We took the last week off. Now, I guess we should start with the Davidson Figueiredo and Joseph Benevidez rematch and how that went. That was for the 125-pound championship belt. Unfortunately for Joseph Benevidez, I think that was his fourth or fifth title shot that he
Fourth, I believe.
Fourth title shot that he unfortunately lost. So he reigns the title of, I think it was the most lost title shots, if I'm correct. Something stupid like that.
I think he's tied with someone for it.
It's unfortunate though, because I
it's
love
a bad
Joseph.
record to have.
But Davidson Figueiredo, I mean, if you thought the first fight was controversial with that headbutt or whatnot, I mean, he let you know who was the champion on this rematch. Violent fight. He is a strong dude, and having that kind of power in the 125-pound division, that's a little scary because most people just don't have that next to someone like Henry Cejudo when he used to fight. But even back then, he didn't used to drop people like Davidson did here. I think he dropped Joseph twice before he got the finish, if I'm correct. So, what was your take on this? The new reigning flyweight champion. How do you feel about this?
It was utter domination from start to finish. That was very sad to see. Like you said, no controversy this time around. Davison beat Joe so convincingly. Joe was in survival mode 99% of that fight. I don't think won a second of it. Now, a lot of people are saying that they think this will inject some kind of life into not into Davidson Figueiredo. Well, it does. It does inject a lot of life into him, I'm sure. Inject a lot of life into the 125-pound division. I have to say, I don't necessarily agree with that. This is a division that has been stripped down and gutted. It's incredibly bare bones. There's not a ton of talent here. Now, would Joe winning have really changed this? No, not quite. The only difference is that people really like Joe. It would be a great storyline. He's tried to climb for this title so many times, and now he finally gets it. That's really the only compelling side of this I could see. I think the division is still very, very dry. And Davison being champ doesn't change that at all. If anything, it makes it worse because, not for him. Hey, good for him. Props to him. He did everything right. But now, instead of a division that looks competitive, it looks like you're going to have this Brazilian Kratos just staying at the top for God knows how long. Could you think of another 125-pounder that is a real threat to Davison right now? A lot of people were saying Askar Askarov. I'll be honest, after his performance last on this same card, I disagree wholeheartedly.
I disagree as well.
I don't think either guy. Who did he fight? Alexander Pantoja.
He didn't look too good.
Neither guy, I thought, looked even remotely close to how Davison looked. Now, Askar Askarov, he's undefeated right now, 12-0. The guy's good, don't get me wrong. He's very skilled. But Davison looked to be on another level. The guy doesn't hit like a flyweight. Joe was getting dropped with every punch. It was crazy. Now, who knows? Askar Askarov could certainly have a lot of room to grow, but yeah, I really don't think this adds new life to the flyweight division. Maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Joe Benevidez fan and I really wanted to see him get this title finally after all this time, all these title shots. But I don't think flyweight has become any more or less competitive or compelling than it was prior to this fight night. If anything, it's less because prior to this fight night, you had this interesting title match, right? You had a controversial first fight, so now there's a storyline in place for this second fight to really decide who is the flyweight king. Now that that's over, I don't really have any more questions, in this entire division, because unless Askar Askarov fights again and makes a really dramatic improvement, I don't have any further questions for this division.
Yeah, it almost feels like a finale per se. I agree with you there. It's like we just saw the end of the movie. I don't see where it goes from here. Maybe the division lies low for a little bit, and then when the new competition comes out and the young guys start getting more wins and becoming more, available for those kind of fights, I feel like it'll start taking off again. But like you said, where does this division really go? I don't, I can't think of anyone besides Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo that could possibly defeat him. I mean, he's just such a dominant guy, and he's got that power that no one else has. How do you match a guy that hits like that? I I I agree with you in the sense that I am upset Joe lost, so I have a little bit of animosity towards Davidson, I guess you could say, because I just really wanted to see Joe finally get that title because he's such a good dude. I like him a lot, and to see Davidson kind of miss weight that first time and then nullify that whole first fight to mean basically nothing. I kind of just wanted to see Joe come back, make the adjustments and win, but
Yeah, I think
clearly,
everyone did.
yeah. Even Davidson did. Jay Davidson loves Joseph Benevidez. Nah, but he's a really fun guy to watch in comparison to a lot of flyweights. But that
Yes.
only when there's actual competition to fight. I don't. It's not very interesting just watching this kind of guy just floor people like I think he would to a lot of these top flyweight contenders. So I think that he makes the division more interesting, just not at the moment. I think that we need to see some better competition come out. And who knows? I could be completely wrong. We could see the number 15 guy come out and whoop his ass. I mean, who knows? But as of right now, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think he's just way too dominant of a
Yeah, I mean,
fighter, and there's not enough competition to take him down.
you could have a dominant champion, but still a compelling division. Like, you look at Khabib. I don't know if anyone at lightweight beats Khabib. I don't know if anyone in the world beats Khabib, period. That dude's undefeated, maybe never lost a round in his career, maybe like one or two, never been cut. I mean, he's the definition of dominant. They don't get more dominant than Khabib. I mean, not even John Jones, I would argue. Uh, 155 is still somehow the most compelling division because everyone under him is so interesting and there's so many interesting matchups. You could say the same for welterweight, right? There, even if those champions are looking, those respective champions, Khabib and Usman, are looking like they're not going anywhere for a bit, there's interesting matchups beneath them between all those guys, and there's still so many people in that division that we haven't seen against the champion yet. Different stylistic matchups where we're like, maybe Justin Gaethje's crazy brawler hits like a train style is the style that Khabib needs to, or that is required to be Khabib. Maybe Tony Ferguson's really unpredictable, uh, craziness and his awesome off the back submissions and his wild striking. Maybe that's what you need to beat Khabib, or maybe you just need a straight up wrestler, somebody that could really challenge him on the ground. Like there's a lot of questions there, and that doesn't just come from Khabib's dominance. It comes from all the competition beneath him. With Davidson Figueiredo, you just don't have that, and Joseph Benevidez didn't exactly present a lot of questions for us in his fight with him. So in the first fight, we had a lot of questions going forward. How did the weight difference, what does that mean for the fight, the headbutt? You had all these questions. And now I don't know how many you have because I can't think of another flyweight that's all that competitive right now. Yeah, I mean, the name on everyone's lips is Askar Askarov. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm a cynic. But I just don't see it. So yeah, Figueiredo Benavidez too. It was a was a little disappointing, but hey, like I said, I don't want to take anything away from Davidson. He did everything right this time. He made the weight. There were no illegal blows. He looked phenomenal. The guy did everything right. Everything. He was better on the feet. He was better on the ground. He was better just about everywhere. So props to him. Congrats. At least we have a flyweight champion now. That was more than you could say, a few weeks back. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a terrific card, but it was fine. One other thing I want to get into on this card real quick before we move on. Jack Hermansson and Kelvin Gastelum. What'd you think of that?
Oh, another heartbreaking endeavor. Not because I dislike Jack Hermansson or something, but I just wanted to see more of a fight. I wanted to see kind of how these guys would do with each other, and all we got to see was some submission skills from Jack Hermansson. And take nothing away from him, it was fantastic. But I like seeing how they interact with each other over the course of a long fight. You know what I mean? I didn't think either would be finished here. I thought we'd see a pretty long endeavor, and to see it just end so quickly in that first round, I was so disappointed. And I will admit, part of that is because I'm a big Kelvin Gastelum fan. I mean, I would have rathered him win. But even if he got the submission finish against Jack Hermansson, I'd still be upset. Because we didn't get to really learn much about this fight. We didn't get to as Stephen A. Smith would say, we just didn't learn much from Jack Hermansson. The Joker has got so much promise in him. And I was thinking to myself, this would be that deciding factor on whether or not he's like a legit contender that's going to somehow, fight for this title sometime and really rise to stardom. But I mean, I guess you could say that he submitted him pretty quick. It was a nice heel hook, I mean, I don't know how you would view that, because I would rate a dominant performance over a long period of time way more heavily than something like this that ends so quickly in submission fashion. So in the end, kind of disappointed, but
Yeah.
it happens. This is MMA. We see this kind of thing all the time. I gotta say, I'm happy for Jack the Joker. I mean, he's doing well.
Disappointment is a thing we feel quite often in this sport.
Yes.
Not how do I phrase that better? We always have this idealistic view or this image of how we would love things to turn out. And that just doesn't happen, Not every fight could be Dan Hooker, Dustin Poirier, or Whittaker and Till, for that matter. And we will certainly return to middleweight to talk about where we think that goes from here on out once we get to the Whittaker and Till fight. But I just wanted to cover this briefly because it was very disappointing, and we didn't see much of anything from Kelvin. It's crazy to think that this is a guy that went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya, who seems to be an unstoppable force in the middleweight division. Adesanya, I mean. So, while Jack got a very impressive submission, I don't think this was necessarily the best case scenario for him. Of course, a quick finish is always great. I think he got performance of the night bonus for it. But when you're fighting, you see, this is tough.
It is.
Because I imagine a lot of people would disagree with me on this, but I don't see this as the rocket ship to take him into middleweight title contention, because, and this is not me trying to take anything away from him, the same way our last talking point was not me trying to take anything away from Davidson Figueiredo, but this didn't look like Jack Hermansson being incredibly dominant. It looked more like Kelvin being incredibly flat, if I'm being honest. He didn't look good. It did not look like the guy that went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya. It wasn't the guy that went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya. And so while, of course, it's great for Jack to get that really quick submission, a lot of questions are left unanswered about him still. I feel similarly as I feel about, of course, we'll talk about it soon, but Alexander Gustafsson and Fabricio Werdum last night, where I'm like, man, that was quick. That was a quick submission that he got caught up in, and I feel like I didn't see enough of what from the person that lost particularly. I think Kelven is much better than what we saw, and we still have a lot to learn about Kelvin Gastelum at middleweight. I think it wasn't the guy that fought Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds, and I will be interested to see where he goes from here. It puts him in a real rough spot. It really does, this losing streak. It's the same way I feel about Gus right now. Gus is in a very tough spot, and he didn't get to show much of anything during his heavyweight debut. Leaves a lot of questions unanswered, but congrats to Jack Hermansson. I'm sure we'll talk about him more when we have our middleweight conversation very soon.
The worst part about that whole Jack Hermansson and Davidson Figueiredo thing was that the fights were back to back, so we got to see the Jack Hermansson submit Kelvin, and then immediately see Joe destroy, or Davidson destroy Joe. So it was just like seeing them both back to back as the and main event. You're just like, ugh.
Both round one finishes. Yeah. Quick night. Yeah. Very quick night. Yeah.
But anyway, go on.
So I was going to say, speaking of quick nights, Bellator is back.
Wow.
Yay!
Didn't see that one coming. Scott Coker, my man.
Bellator is back. Let me start by saying, okay, the card was kind of shit. We all know that. If you're an MMA fan, you watched it. You probably thought the card was kind of shit. Let's just get that out of the way right now. But one thing I want to say is, hey, we're living in really tough times right now. You know, the world is falling apart. I'm glad to see another MMA organization back operating. You know, this is very good news for the sport of MMA. Very good news, regardless of how you feel about how that card went. This is great. This is competition for the UFC reigniting itself. This is fighters getting paid again. This is everything, you know? As much as Bellator just falls flat time and time again, and this card was no exception at all. It was the embodiment of flat, if I'm being honest. I know you didn't watch it, and trust me, you were not missing much. I'll go over some key points that I want to talk about very quickly. So first of all, like I said, hey, Bellator's back. That's very good. It's great to have another MMA organization. It's the second largest MMA organization in the world, so that's fantastic. That's all good. The production was very good. It looked nice. The pacing, holy Christ, it was terrible. It was like an hour between each fight. It was nuts. It was crazy slow, and I could not watch it. Like it wasn't like how I was watching the UFC last night, where I was doing nothing else and I was glued to my screen. This was kind of on in the background, and a big reason for that, I have to be honest, Goldie, Josh Thompson, and John McCarthy. Dear Lord, these guys are not good commentators. They are real bad. And I noticed it even more after listening to them and then listening to Dan Hardy, John Gooden, and Paul Felder last night. I mean, it is night and day. Wow. Goldie, God, I love Goldie, but the guy is such a freak, and he's so terrible to listen to. There's so many awkward moments with him on the mic between the other commentators. They have no chemistry. And I remember this from when he was in the UFC with Rogan. It was the same thing. Don't you remember all those awkward moments between him and Rogan back when Goldie was with the UFC? dude, it's the same thing when he's with Big John and Josh Thompson.
I
It's
remember
this.
I remember when Joe and Mike were always together. You could kind of tell that Mike would say something and Joe would kind of just look at him and be like, Why did you say that? What are you talking about?" And
It's
it was
so
there's
awkward,
so many
dude.
awkward engagements between Joe and them. I've listened to him on Bellator before, and I used to be a huge Mike Goldberg fan until I met John Anik. And it's just after listening to someone like John Anik, DC, Paul Felder, Dom, Joe. I mean, it's like you really get the perspective on
I
how.
noticed you didn't include Bisping in there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bisping. I do like Bisping. There's a lot.
People hate on Bisping's
No, I
commentary
think
a
I
lot.
think
I don't
it's
mind it.
energetic. I really do. It really
Yeah,
gets you excited, and he's
I don't
always
mind it at
yelling
all.
and making
Yeah,
jokes, a lot of
he's
inappropriate
fun.
stuff. He makes it interesting, not stuff
He's
normal
fun.
people would say.
Bisping's awesome, dude.
Yeah, but
I
it
don't give a
really
shit what anyone
it
says.
puts into perspective. Like Mike is just not as knowledgeable about this at all compared to those commentators, and that's fine. But it really just shows when you watch Bellator and then go back and watch the UFC the night after, like you did. I know you were saying how you were like, "Oh, this commentator or this commentation is so much better." So yeah, I would agree with you, man. I
Dude,
would.
it makes such a difference. It really does. And I think the big thing when you have so John and Josh have good chemistry. I think they're friends. I think that's safe to say. They do a podcast together. They have good chemistry and they're very knowledgeable about fighting. They're just not terrific commentators, okay? And commentary is a crazy difficult job. Don't get me, it's like I realize that. And they just come off as a little green, a little rusty. Whereas someone like John Anik, it's just easy for him. You could tell. He's just, I mean, maybe it's not easy. He makes it seem easy. Um,
He's a natural,
just he's
100%.
so natural,
Yeah.
dude. A lot, I would argue most of the UFC commentators are completely natural. Like it's easy for them. And a big thing is chemistry. Like when you have John Anik, Joe Rogan, and DC, those dudes have a great time together. A great time. That is three buddies watching fights who also really know their shit and are terrific speakers. Goldie has no chemistry with John and Josh to the point where I'm like, they don't want him there. Like it comes off as they don't want him there. And he's not, he's a better play-by-play guy than both of them. So they're both color commentators and they struggle with it. And Goldie is a pretty decent play-by-play guy. You know, he does the here we go.
Oh
He's good at that. Um and he's good at the it is all over. And don't get me wrong, some of his lines are iconic and they will always be remembered in the sport of MMA. Um, it's when he tries to do some color commentary that it all really falls apart when he's like, Ricky Bandejas is basically Anthony Pettis, and Anthony Pettis is brothers with Sergio Pettis, and Sergio Pettis and Anthony Pettis spar together. So Sergio Pettis will probably be able to beat Ricky Bandejas. Now, ultimately, that was kind of true, but it's like, dude, what? Like he makes all these connections that are, you know what it is? It's that meme from It's Always Sunny where Charlie is trying to find Pepe Sylvia and he has that board with all the dots connecting to each other all over the
yeah.
place and he looks like a crazy person.
Uh,
That's Mike Goldberg's commentary in a nutshell. He's always just like, well, Sergio Pettis is from the United States and he's 5'6", and Ricky Bandejas is also from the United States and he's 5'7", and they both fight in the sport of MMA. So that means they're gonna fight tonight. It's like, what the fuck are you saying, man?
Mike,
It's
my
like it's
boy.
all over the place, dude. It's these weird tangential connections that are like vague, like super vague and super like you're forcing connections
Yeah.
where there are none.
They just shouldn't be made in the first place, right?
Yeah, and he also does this weird thing where he's interviewing people and he's just got this devilish grin on his face. Like he's like, I'm gonna tie you up and eat you kind of face on him.
Yeah.
It's really creepy. He's a very odd guy, and I'm sure he's a nice dude, and he probably does a better job at commentating than most people could do. Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. He's definitely better than like the average person at commentary, right? Like you wouldn't have the job if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe.
I couldn't do it. He's better
Yeah,
than
but
me. Like
sometimes not doing something is better than doing it poorly.
that's
No,
true.
I'm being
That's
hard on
true.
Mike. He's
Um,
a classic. You know, I shouldn't be that
he is a
mean
classic.
to him.
And he seems like a good dude. You
Yeah,
know, he
he's got a
seems
good heart.
good-hearted.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know that he might eat people in his basement for all I know. I'm just saying what I see. But yeah, it was that Bellator card was rough, man. And you had so the only two fights I really wanted to talk about were Aaron Pico making his return, one of the biggest stars in Bellator. Now that's speaking relatively. I would not argue that Aaron Pico is a star like Jorge Masvidal is a star, but he is one of the biggest fighters in Bellator. And Bellator does this thing where they really try to promote individuals and rather than fights. So Aaron Pico was getting all the attention for this fight because they're really trying to cultivate that young talent. And they previously failed at doing so. Aaron Pico was on a 2-fight losing streak because they fed him to some dogs. Well, this time, the matchmakers said, okay, find some dude on the outside the arena, bring him in, and just let Aaron Pico wrestle the shit out of him. That's essentially what happened. I don't know who this guy was, Solo Hatley Jr., that Aaron Pico fought, but he looked terrible on the ground, and Aaron did the smart thing, didn't try to stand and exchange with him, and just took him down and sunk in the rear naked choke with ease. I mean, it was textbook. Got him on the ground, was in his guard, landed some shots. Dude flipped over. Aaron dug in the hooks, got the wrist around, or got the forearm around the chin, and that was that. It was as textbook as they come. So the question is this the way to build a star? I would argue no. I would argue that it's better to maybe not feed a potential star to like some killers, but you need to match him with adequate challenge and let him do the work himself. Just telling us that this guy is going to be a star and then show it by feeding some tomato cans to him doesn't do that guy any favors. I would argue that it does the opposite. I think it hurts his brand more than anything when he's able to go in there against an unknown name and just, you know, dominate. Now, I'm going to compare it to Jorge Masvidal for a second, and by no means do I suggest that Jorge Masvidal and Aaron Pico are the same caliber of fighter. Jorge Masvidal has been doing this for a while, okay? He's a vet. He's an elite fighter. He's a star. Aaron Pico is none of those things. He's not, I would say not elite. I think he's approaching elite status. He's not elite yet. He's not a star, and he's not a veteran. He's only been doing this for a short time. Jorge Masvidal, when his stardom really shot up, it wasn't like they gave him some bums to just piece up. Nobody would be interested in that. Who did they give him? They gave him the guy that is the biggest star in British MMA right now, Darren Till, and he put him out. And then they give him an elite wrestler, someone that on paper is a terrible matchup for him, and he puts him out. Jorge Masvidal shot to stardom because they gave him adequate challenge. He met that challenge and really just proved that he is a force to be reckoned with. They're not giving Aaron Pico adequate challenge. Bellator can't seem to find balance when they are matchmaking. They either feed their potential star to some killers, or they feed tomato cans to the star. Neither of those things help in building a star. I know I'm going off on a really long tangent here, but this is just something I feel about Bellator cultivating young talent. I've always thought that they have not done a terrific job at it, and I think that continues right now, as we see with Aaron Pico. And then the other fight I just wanted to talk about was Sergio Pettis and Ricky Bandejas, a largely unimpressive fight. Sergio winner by decision. You can go back and watch this if you want. It's nothing to really write home about. Sergio went in there, fought tactically, fought smart, fought with a nice game plan, outpointed him for 3 rounds. Ricky did none of that. Ricky seemingly had zero game plan. He was simply reacting to Sergio's offense the entire time. He wasn't getting like battered. It wasn't like survival mode. It was just he was just kind of there, waiting for Sergio to throw, and he would react. And sometimes he reacted accordingly, and other times he didn't. And Sergio won the fight. So Bellator, definitely not a strong comeback card for you guys, but I will say I'm very happy they're back. Very happy fighters are making money. I'm very happy that the sport of mixed martial arts, not just the UFC, is starting to regain their footing. That's very good to see. But that's all I wanted to say on Bellator. We can move on if you don't have anything to add, because I know you didn't watch it, and there's not a whole lot to say about it.
I watched a few Bellator events in my lifetime, and I mean they're great, but it's just, why would you watch that when you can watch the UFC? And a lot of the times they're on at the same night. Yeah, I mean, the level of competition. I like what you said about building competition. I think you should build it around adversity and who they're fighting rather than who they are and beating cans. But that's another story.
Well,
I think you explained it well.
Think about some of the biggest stars in Bellator history, right? Who are the biggest stars?
Ryan Bader did beat Fedor. They marketed him well, but he's not exactly the most likable person to the fans. So I think someone like Aaron Pico and MVP are better to look at in that regard.
But and my point being is that people in Bellator that are stars, the biggest stars in Bellator's history, are people that made their fame elsewhere. Who are some of the biggest stars in your opinion? The biggest star, his name's Kimbo Slice.
Oh,
honestly.
Dada 5000. Rest in peace. No, he died 5 times like on the operating table, but I think he came back the 5th time or something like that. It was something crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think like someone like Austin Vanderford, pretty sure he's only popular because of Paige Van Zandt, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong there. And Michael Chandler, I think he was in the UFC before this, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I mean, you raise very good points here.
Fedor made his fame elsewhere. Chael Sonnen, elsewhere. Lyoto Machida, elsewhere. Rory McDonald. I mean, all these people.
I mean, Tito Ortiz. I mean, he was never really famous though. Tito Ortiz was never my friend.
I think Tito Ortiz was famous.
He was famous for all the wrong reasons, I think.
Yeah.
He was kind of just a laughing stock. I mean, he could fight per se, but his personality is just a complete meme when you break it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he still, he draws eyes.
I'm going to beat you into the living death.
Well, he didn't say that. That was said to him.
Something that would be said he would say though.
He laughed at. He did
think that was funny. He had so many fun matchups though. I love Tito. You can watch compilations of him on YouTube for days of just the weird stuff that went on around him, whether it's like the feuds with Dana or the funny stuff with fighters. It's great. And his wife's a porn star or something like that, so he's even better.
I think it's his ex-wife now.
Well.
But my overall point is that, and I remember I asked this question on Morning Combat once. Morning Combat, the YouTube MMA show with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. I submitted this question and they answered it on air, and it was basically the same thing I'm saying now, where I believe that Bellator struggles to cultivate young talent. And I asked why you think that is, and I cited some of the people I just cited for you, and said these are people that got their fame elsewhere. And Brian Campbell mostly agreed with what I said and was like, well, ultimately Bellator is the B team, right? They're second to the UFC. That's just what it is. That's what it's always has been, and you will never have the stars that you have in the UFC in Bellator. And then Luke Thomas kind of disagreed and started citing all of these people that he thinks Bellator did a good job at promoting. Aaron Pico being one of those people. The problem is, I think, when I think about stardom in the UFC, I think about people in my personal life that aren't necessarily MMA fans. They're aware of MMA. And I think would they know this person? Maybe not know them, definitely not know them like you and I do, but would they be at least a little familiar with them?
Do you even
Would
know
they
of them? Yeah.
would
Have you
they
heard of them?
recognize their face? Would they recognize their name? Would they be aware of a fight that they may have had? I can't think of a single person in Bellator where that is true, aside from people that made their fame elsewhere, like Fedor in Pride back in the day. People don't know Fedor from Bellator. It's just
No.
not the case. Or Mirko Krokop or anyone. They know those guys as those those crazy 90s fights in Japan. Now with the UFC, I think I do think people in my personal life, people that are just kind of onlookers of MMA, they do know people. They obviously know Connor. I mean, Connor is a bit of an anomaly, so maybe that's a bad example.
Even
They,
someone like Ronda Rousey, she's the next
yeah,
biggest star back in the day.
Ronda's a good example.
Everybody knows her.
Maybe Jorge, probably Khabib because of the Connor fight. Um, there's a few like that the casual audience would know. I don't think that's true at all for Bellator. I think you actually have to be really ingrained in Bellator MMA to know anyone that fights for them that isn't an old guy that fought somewhere else a few years back. I mean, like I said, I'm glad they're back, but oh boy,
Could have been better.
oh boy, man.
So, okay. UFC on Fight Island 3 is what they're calling this one. So, this was headlined by Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. Now, that fight, it was pretty good. A lot of people didn't think it would go the distance. It ended up going the distance, and Robert won a split decision. I think you can give Robert the first, fourth, and fifth, maybe. I guess that's how the judges saw it. And it was pretty competitive throughout the entire thing. I mean, both of these guys are just technicians, They're so crafty in their form, and it's tough to see these two guys fight each other when they know exactly how dangerous each one of them is, and they know how each one counters. So it was a very stressful endeavor, I feel. The entire thing was very stressful to watch, and even after the fight, Darren Till and Robert Whittaker both said, like, this is the most stressful fight I've ever been in. The entire time, I'm just trying to find out what's going on, it's very, very stressful. And I think that transparency is very interesting to see. You even saw near the end of the fight, Robert Whittaker was like, "Oh, yeah, you knocked my lights out with that elbow in the first round. You almost got me there." Like the mutual respect between them was great. And even Darren Till, the clown that he is, wouldn't talk shit on Robert before the fight. He's like, he's a good guy. I don't want to say anything about him and whatnot. But yeah, I thought the fight was really competitive. I think Robert snuck it away. He was more busy. Till did a great job, though. I don't think this takes away either stock of either fighter. So I think this was probably the best outcome of the fight, because I know you're like me, and I know a lot of people are like this, where we both really like these fighters. I love Robert Whittaker. I love Darren Till, so I kind of don't want to see either of them lose. So I think the best case scenario is that like long drawn out 5 round decision where it was kind of close, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really take anything away from either fighter. They're both kind of in the same position. But yeah, overall, I would say it was a satisfying main event to watch. And I'm happy that Robert got the victory because, I mean, he had a rough time with Izzy. So it's good to see him get back in the win column. And you could tell he was obviously a little spooked to get back in there. It seemed his energy was a little off at first, but I think he found his rhythm after that first round and he took it away. So I gotta ask, what did you think about him?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was a terrific main event, a very tactical striking contest that was just really compelling and interesting to watch. It doesn't get much more elite than that. It's the kind of fight I would watch like 2 or 3 times, like score it myself, take notes on it, slow it down, and really try to pick up on some of the things that each guy is doing. Because it was such a I think it was Dan Hardy that said they were setting so many traps for each other. It was just a great example of really elite striking, uh, just a masterclass in footwork, in feinting, uh, in octagon control and range management. It's just very, very fun to watch. It's kind of I kind of feel the same way about it that I felt about Dan Hooker and Dustin Poirier, albeit that fight was much more brutal and grueling on both guys. Um, but it was like I felt the same way where I'm like, wow, uh, we're watching the best of the best right now. This is top tier stuff. These are the best athletes that this sport has to offer. That's what we're watching right now. And um, I was happy it went 5 rounds, so we got to see, the full breadth of what both of these guys have to offer. I think Darren's main problem was not pulling the trigger enough, like you said. I think Rob won the decision based on just activity. He was way more active. He was missing a lot because Darren's head movement was terrific, but those leg kicks were just adding up. That was just money in the bank every time. I think that Dan Hardy was saying that. I think that's a great expression. Really, uh, just a great way to describe what was really happening there. Not those strikes were not meant to sweep Darren off his feet, although that would be ideal. But that was just one after another starting to add up, add up. He did the same. Rob did the same thing when he fought Yoel Romero. I was surprised. One thing I was surprised about in terms of the leg kicks, I thought the volume was good output, really taxing on Darren's lead leg. You heard him between rounds say that he was struggling to put weight on it. Um, I was surprised we didn't see any more of those downward kicks to the knee. You know what I'm talking about? So
The
you have
stomps?
yeah, they're like yeah, they look like stomps almost, where he throws it right at the knee directly, kind of in a downward stomping angle. I don't know exactly how you would describe that, like a lead front kick, I guess, or a lead front leg kick,
Is that?
whatever.
I
But
can't think of the term for it, but yeah, and I know what you're talking about.
we didn't see a whole lot of that, which I was a little surprised about. We did see a little more towards the body. He was kind of pushing with that side kick a little bit to keep Darren at range. He was struggling at first with Darren's range, I think, in the first round. I think you could actually give the first round to Darren, not Rob.
I meant to
Uh,
say I meant to say second, fourth, and fifth. The Rob one,
yeah,
not first. Yeah, he definitely didn't win the first round.
yeah. First round was very clearly 10-9 for
Yeah,
Darren. He was doing a terrific job at using that crazy length he has. He has like that John Jones build where he's very lanky and able. They're the same height, which is shocking to me. They don't look like they're the same. When they stand right face to face with each other, you could see that they're the same height. But when they're fighting, they fight. Rob or Darren is so much longer than Rob, and he fights just in a longer way. Let his stance is taller. He fights, I mean, like a gorilla. He
yeah.
he actually looks like a gorilla, so his nickname is very fitting. Rob was definitely struggling with that length, in the first round. Darren was doing a terrific job at range management and sniping Rob, but then Rob got a read on it and was able to just figure out that range, figure out how to get inside and be a little more explosive. But yeah, it was just a terrific striking chess match. I really loved it. I I think that's just some of the best this sport has, you know? Like I feel the way about that I felt about Dustin and Dan. It's also the way I felt about Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, albeit that was a much more one-sided battle, much more one-sided. But I was just like, wow, this is, at least from Tyson Fury, this is elite. Like, what is going on here is really special. You need to watch this a few times to really get what's going on. The commentary is not going to pick up everything. You're not going to pick up everything when you're watching it. There's a lot here, right? There's the traps being set with all these feints. There's some terrific in and out movements. The footwork is just otherworldly. Just a really great performance from both guys. I'm glad the judges didn't fuck it up. That was good scoring, 48-47 for Rob, unanimous decision. Yeah, man, I was really pleased with that main event. It's much more high level fighting than we saw in Bellator's main event.
By far.
Yeah.
Aside from the feinting and that masterclass footwork that Rob has, I love how he was faking the takedowns and then going up top and then striking.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he would actually go for the takedowns, and then Darren Till got a little comfortable with that, and then Rob would go for the takedown, grab the leg, and then just start striking at the top. And I was so impressed with the way he was able to do that. And even in the post-fight presser, Darren was like, I think Izzy is an easier matchup for me than Rob, because Izzy doesn't do that kind of thing. Izzy doesn't fake takedowns and go for takedowns and then go up and strike. And he basically just said that he's a much more dynamic fighter. And I would agree. But Izzy, man, if you look at the way Izzy knocked out Robert, that's if you thought these guys are impressive, that is just insane.
I do
but,
think.
I'm sorry, go on.
I do think it's a very different Robert Whittaker between the Israel Adesanya fight and the Till fight. Those were two very different guys. I think. I mean, he has said this himself. The Israel fight, that was a Robert Whittaker who had just got off 10 rounds with Yoel Romero, and he had the weight of the world on his shoulders with that title. And he said it himself. He was burnt out, the guy. And he went in there with this crazy sense of urgency, like he wanted to just be done with it, right? Like he went in there super aggressive and seemed like he was just trying to he was trying to make it a quick night. I don't think he was willing to do another 5-round war. I don't think that was necessarily like a conscious thought of his, where he was like, I'm not going 5 rounds, win or lose. Like, I'm going to go in there and it's going to be done the first. But I think in his game plan and in his execution, somewhere in his subconscious, he was not willing to do another 5-round war. That was just way too taxing for the guy. He was fried. And Israel took advantage of that and, put him out cold. Now, he has, what was it, like 2 years off? The Israel fight was in 2018, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. It was a while.
So he came into this fight refreshed, revitalized. His demeanor was so much different, dude. He seemed way more in it, way more focused, way more motivated, and just way happier. That was good to see. That was really good to see, because I'm a huge Whittaker fan, man. He's one of my all-time favorites. I'd put him in like top 10 of my just favorite fighters ever. And the Robert Whittaker we saw last night was happy to be there. He was really engaged in this fight. And that's when he's his most dangerous. And I'm really excited to see where he goes next from here.
The way he blitzes in and starts striking is something you don't really see with a lot of fighters. The way he moves is just so unique to him. He's almost like a Dominic Cruz in that sense, because if you show a silhouette of him fighting, you could easily 100% tell, like, that's Robert Whittaker right there.
Yeah.
He's got such a weird and dynamic style to him. And those kicks to the leg, I wanted to mention in that, also in the post-fight presser, Darren talked about it, and Robert too. They talked about that kick. I don't know what it's called, but that stomp to the knee. And Darren had said that he's probably going to need surgery on that leg, and that Robert really damaged it. And they asked Robert about it, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know that at all." I was like, "Oh." So he did.
He's so chill.
Yeah, Darren Till
Rob.
did a good job of hiding it, because I didn't really notice it too much. But yeah, I guess he's having a real hard time even walking around now.
Yeah,
So
that leg was chewed up.
and he would. I think Yoel did that to him in the first fight, and then he started doing it to Yoel in the second fight, and that kind of like stuck with him. Not too sure about that, if that's like the origin story of that kick. But,
No, I remember hearing that as well.
But I remember Robert going, "Yeah, I'm gonna give Yoel a taste of his own medicine with those knee stomps and such." But yeah, the level of chill between both of them is insane. They're just so happy to be done with it because of the level that this fight was on. I mean, these guys, like you said, it was a chess match the entire time, and 25 minutes of that's draining, not only physically but mentally. And I love to see their attitude towards it. Win or lose, they even Robert said if he loses, he's fine. That was a good fight. He would have been okay with that. And Darren said he's fine with the results. You know, he thought he won, but he's not gonna complain about what happened, because he thought it can go either way. So to see both fighters say, yeah, win or lose, that was a good fight. I'm glad it happened, and happy with the result. That's nice. It's refreshing. They're both such good characters, and they clearly like each other. So
And they will most likely run it back at some point.
yeah, I definitely.
I don't think
so.
immediately, but in the future.
But yeah, I think that they match up well together, physically with fighting and personality-wise, and I love seeing this mutual respect between fighters. There's not much that's better than seeing that, especially with two guys that you really like. You just get to see them vibe on camera, and it's nice, you know. It really builds up their character and their stock. Because I mean, fighting is one thing, but if you're likable as a person, that's a whole new avenue. You know, you're gonna get so many fans if you can do
Darren
both.
Till is big right now.
Oh man, I love him so much.
He's going to continue to grow very much.
When I first saw him fight, I think it was against Stephen Thompson, and I was like, I just don't like this man based on his face. He's got a weird face, you know what I mean? Especially when he fights, it's like smushed. It freaked me out at first. That was so long ago. But like, first impressions, he kind of looks like a dick, and he kind of is a dick. But he's so likable. Like
He's very funny.
The stuff with Mike Perry, for example, is just hilarious. Mike is a bum.com. Who does that? That's a Darren Till thing. And like he comes off as this arrogant prick, but when you get down to earth with him, he's such a good dude. Especially like going back with his honesty about the Gastelum fight and how horrified he was about fighting Gastelum and how he wanted to fake an injury to get out of it last minute. Like, you don't see Darren Till very often. You know, Darren Till is a rare specimen, and I think we need to cherish that kind of I don't even know what you'd call it. Just that kind of personality,
charisma.
That charisma, sure. That honesty and the transparency. It's just so refreshing. So I don't know where to put him from here, but I gotta wish the best for him. What's up?
Is Mike Perry is a bum.com still a thing? Is it still up?
I don't know. I was really surprised that nobody asked him about Mike Perry in the post-fight press conference. Like, hey, how did you hear about?
It's not up. File not found. 404 error.
Damn. That's a shame. I wonder if Mike Perry made him take it down. But it's fun to see that just that level of clown in a fighter.
I think they should fight next, because I think that gets Darren back in the win column.
Oh
I
man,
think Darren
that's a bad fight for Mike.
absolutely annihilates him.
Now, nothing against Mike. I love him.
I
Kind
don't.
of a psychopath, but if you watch him fight Mickey Gall, he's stiff as a board, just walking towards him. No lateral movement at all, just walk forward, hands literally look like stone. They weren't even moving, and he was just like inching forward. The point is, his movement was just not there. And if you fight Darren Till and you don't have movement to deal with him, you're completely boned. You're just gonna get picked apart the entire time.
It's gonna be a rough night.
I don't think he should fight Mike. I want to see him fight Mike. I don't think he should, because I want to see him fight higher level competition so he can get back into the contention realm. Because obviously, I don't think they're going to give him a title shot coming off a loss. So I want to see him fight someone who's a little more, dangerous, a little more exciting than Mike Perry. As much as I would love to see him fight him, you know what I mean?
Well, let's look at the middleweight rankings real quick. What is a good fight for Darren Till now?
I don't think. I mean, you could argue Gastelum again, but I don't think anyone wants to see that. You know.
Yeah. Maybe.
It's tough. I mean, Jared Cannonier. That's not no. He's
no,
probably
Jared
next up.
Cannonier. You gotta give a title
You
shot.
gotta
very
give him
soon.
Yoel Romero. That's
Yoel and Darren Till.
Darren has stated that he's horrified of fighting Yoel Romero multiple times. He said he wants.
Maybe
to fight
that's not a
that.
good comeback
How about
fight,
Jack
then?
Hermansson? Jack is below him.
Jack's
he just
coming
won.
off a win, though.
Yeah, but he's below him on the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, UFC rankings are kind of fucked. You have Derek Brunson and Edmund Shabazian, maybe the winner of that.
I could see that, yeah. Maybe Uriah Hall would be fun.
I was thinking that, yeah, Uriah Hall wouldn't be a bad fight. But
there's a lot of places he can go, but I don't know. Maybe with that knee injury that he's said he has now, maybe he'll need to take some time off.
Yeah, that's true.
So who knows
before we see him?
Yeah, who knows how the division's gonna look by the time that's over? Because who knows? Maybe Paulo Costa's the champ, and Whittaker's fighting for the title
why
again.
Is
who
Yoel
knows?
At number 4?
Because good question.
Hasn't the dude lost 3 title fights in a row?
I think it's just the level of competition. If you fight the best of the best and you come close to winning each time, it's kind of like, did you really lose? Because he fought Robert twice and then Izzy, right?
What about Costa? When was that?
Oh, I think he fought Whittaker, then Costa, then Whittaker, and then Izzy. And you can argue that he won that Costa fight, and you can argue that he won the Whittaker fight, the second one. So I mean, if you think of it like that, he's not that far. He's not that far down. Like coming off 4 losses, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy with someone like him with his athleticism. His 0-4 in his last 4 though. That is wild.
Yeah.
But dude, I don't want to see him ever retire. I don't care how rich he is from that lawsuit from that supplement company. I just want to see him keep fighting forever.
Dude's 43.
You saw the prophecies. He's gonna be fighting Rush Holloway soon, Max Holloway's son, in 20 years, in his debut. He's gonna look exactly the same.
You think Rush is gonna be a middleweight?
No, but he has to bump his numbers up and get to middleweight if he's gonna fight Yoel. That's the prophecy. Yeah, it's gonna be. I think middleweight is really interesting now. Much better than it used to be. Robert was at the top for a while, and that was cool, but he's kind of just beating everybody. So it's nice to see some fresh faces in there, especially with Paulo. Obviously, Izzy's a star. He's a bop to watch at any time, So, yeah, middleweight's looking good.
What do you do next for Rob? Maybe Jack Hermansson?
I don't know. He's number 1 contender. I would think that he takes some time off and waits for a title shot, maybe. Because maybe against Costa if he beats Izzy.
Maybe what you do is you give Jared Cannonier the winner of Izzy and Costa. You give him the next title shot, and then you do Rob and Jack.
Yeah, because I don't think Rob wants to wait that long. So yeah, maybe that would work.
You give Rob and Jack. You do Rob and Jack, and then the winner of Rob and Jack takes on the winner of Cannonier and whoever is champ.
So
or
we have
if Cannonier is the champ or whoever.
Yeah, it's a pretty lengthy roadmap for middleweight here. I love that.
Yeah, that's always good when you have a lot of different ways you can go with the, like, we were talking about flyweight earlier, and I'm like,
You remember how
Askarov,
light heavyweight used to be interesting. Good
yeah, but
times.
now John Jones doesn't want to fight anymore, so
Alexander Gustafsson moved up a rank ahead of like everybody in the light heavyweight rankings here. I don't know if you noticed that. He just went up one and everyone else went down one up to the number 7 position.
that's very weird
That is
considering
weird.
he just lost at heavyweight.
Yeah, I don't get that. That's probably just an error on UFC's part.
That was a depressing performance.
Yeah. Okay, so great segue into Alexander Gustafsson fighting Fabricio Werdum. Alexander railed Werdum. The most one-sided fight I've ever seen. I'm not gonna to lie to you. I gave Fabricio. I mean, I told you this before the fight. I gave Fabricio a 0% chance of winning this fight. I thought even on the ground,
You're a
even
crazy
with
person.
BJJ, there's no chance. Alexander has fought the best of the best. At one point, he was the best of the best, and I still think he is one of the best of the best. And compared to someone like Fabricio, who just got battered by Alexei Oleinik for 3 rounds, I thought he had no chance. Because Alexander is a much better striker than Alexei, but Alexei's got that BJJ to protect himself, because I guess Fabricio hasn't forgotten how to, submit people like he used to. But, oh, man. Gus is in a bad spot, like you said earlier. I'm really upset for him.
The guy is one of the best submission artists at heavyweight ever. He's probably one of the greatest heavyweights ever. Like, you got to put him in like top 10 at least. I'm very surprised you were so dismissive.
I would put him in top 100. When I saw him fight Alexei Oleinik, dude, I lost all faith in him ever winning a fight again.
He did look bad in that fight. You're right, but that was one fight.
He didn't look bad in that fight. He looked horrible in that fight.
But he looked much better last night.
Yeah, that was an anomaly. That was a fluke.
An anomaly.
Run it back. Nah, you got to give him credit. Former champ. He defeated Cain Velasquez in Mexico, so I mean, you got to give him credit where it's due.
Yeah.
Maybe Alexei Oleinik is just that good, Maybe I was not rating him high enough, you know what I mean? When making the assessment.
No, it was a bad performance. You're right, but it was one performance,
But dude, it didn't even look like a bad performance. It looked like someone in Bellator was coming to fight like someone in the UFC. I don't know. He looked Bellator capable in that fight. That's about
he is an old guy that has his former glory in the UFC, so he would fit in perfectly in Bellator.
Here's the thing,
especially at heavyweight.
Here's the thing about Fabricio though. Popped for steroids at one point after USADA came and whatnot. He was never the same after USADA. And does that take away from him before USADA came, when he was murdering Cain Velasquez and stuff like that, and murdering everybody? There was a clear difference between pre-USADA and post-USADA Fabricio Werdum. And that kind of...
You could say that about most old guys.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Shogun and Minotauro last night. Like, you look at that... I get that they're both much older now. Much, much older. But, dude, you look at their first Pride fight. Holy shit. Shogun was on all the juices. Shogun was... I mean, that's just the culture back then, I think. You could say
those Brazilians took a big hit. I mean, look at Jose Aldo, for example, after USADA came.
And Vitor.
And
Anderson.
Yeah, there's a clear pattern of Brazilian fighters in USADA kind of...
That's just what it was back then.
Destroying their career. So
that's just what it was.
Yeah, so in the end, how did you feel about the Alexander fight though, as a whole? What do you think we do now? I don't know.
I feel the same way about him as I feel about Kelvin Gastelum. I don't know. I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're at in their careers right now. I don't know what to make of Gus at heavyweight because I barely got to see anything. His takedown defense was looking pretty solid at first, and then Fabricio does what Fabricio does, and got him down and got that submission in. Gus was making the wrong moves to fight that armbar.
Yeah, 100%.
He definitely was. on the feet, he still looked like he had the pep in his step and the snap to those punches, right?
Yeah.
He didn't look slow at heavyweight, I would say, but it was so limited. It was such a limited sample size. Um, we don't even know what second round Alexander Gustafsson at heavyweight looks like. I mean, there's so many questions still remaining. I hope he comes. I think he will come back. He wasn't
Yeah.
talking about retirement again or anything.
I think he acknowledges that loss was a little bit not exactly a fluke, but it didn't really say much about his career. You know what I mean?
He has more to show.
Yeah, 100%.
He has much more to show. So I don't really know what you do with him next. I guess you just give him another fight at heavyweight. Heavyweight isn't exactly the most compelling division. Let's look at the
top
rankings.
top 8 heavyweight is interesting. I mean, Alexander Volkov, Yarin Zeno, Alistair, Derek, Curtis, Francis, Daniel Jr.
I don't know
you can't give him them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if you can give him.
I mean, Fabricio's 14 right now, so maybe give him an unranked opponent, and then if he wins that, start feeding him the ranked again. You know, that's my take on it.
Yeah,
I just don't know who. That's up to the matchmakers.
Stipe, man, just fight Stipe.
Give him Amanda Nunes. You know,
cancel the Stipe DC fight. We want Gus in there.
Did you see the advertisement for that where DC was just like completely cut off during that the show yesterday?
No,
they had like a little promo for him. You know, it was just a still image, and it showed half of Stipe's face on one side, and then the UFC lettering in the middle, and then on the other side it showed Daniel's face, but Daniel was like in the corner, like completely cut off. It showed like a quarter of his face.
That's great. Love that. That's a super exciting fight, man. I feel about that as I feel about Robert Till, where I'm like, I love both guys so much. Why does this have to happen? Why can't we just be friends? But that's really, man. That's gonna free up that log jam at heavyweight, as long as it's not like some kind of weird controversy, like Daniel digs his fingernail into Stipe's eyeball and the fight stops in the first round, Yair Rodriguez, Jeremy Stevens style. As long as that doesn't happen, we're finally going to see heavyweights start to move forward and get a little bit more exciting. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited for that trilogy, but I'm also kind of tired of it at this, you know, like
I didn't think it needed to happen, but I mean, because I just want to see them fight other people.
Yeah, I'm ready to see a bit of a shake-up at heavyweight and see some of these other guys, like Francis.
Because it's putting a hold on all of those top people.
It's putting such a hold. I think Francis, Curtis Blades, they're Alistair even. Like, I'm excited to see Alistair make a title run if he's saying that might be a thing for him. I'm ready to move on from Stipe and DC. I kind of just want to get this over with. I know that sounds bad.
What if one of them gets injured? I'm pretty sure Fabricio Werdum, what's his face? The Predator. Francis Ngannou will probably step in. Who would fight him on short notice, though? That's not fun. Especially if it's someone like Miocic who's training for a wrestler. You know.
Stipe already beat him once, so he might be confident that he could do it again. I don't think that's the same Francis.
I don't think it's the same Stipe.
Yeah.
If you saw him fight DC the second time, I know it was a while ago, but he looked very stiff. He didn't look like he had the head movement. He was just getting clapped by DC constantly until he made the adjustments. But who knows? That might just be that anxiety and that fear of getting knocked out again. You know, when he fights a guy he already beat, it might be different.
If Stipe was to drop out of this fight, do you think they would do Daniel and Francis for an interim title? I don't know if Daniel
I don't think DC would want to fight him. I think, well, I mean, DC has said in the past that he's felt very confident against that matchup. And he literally just said, I can wrestle, and he can wrestle. But
I don't know how you could feel confident fighting Francis.
That's the thing, man. He's such an anomaly.
I'm not an elite fighter either, but Francis is so scary, man. God,
he's such a likable dude, though. I love him.
He seems like a cool
He was
guy.
really cocky in that Stipe fight, but after he lost, he's been so humble.
God. Yeah, he lost his mind.
Yeah.
Went and tried to fight Derek Lewis. That went bad, and now he's back.
Yeah, I mean there are fights that are worse than the Alexander Gustafsson Fabricio Werdum if you look back at that one. I guess it's not all that bad, you know.
Yeah.
The sports
Yeah.
psychologist fight.
Yeah. So I guess we could talk about the co-main since we already touched on it briefly. How'd you feel about Shogun and Minotauro? It was way better than I anticipated it
Yeah,
being.
much like you, I thought that Alexander and Fabricio should have been the co-main, but after
Mm-hmm.
seeing that, the matchmakers were right. Dana was right. Mitch, you got it. Or Mick, not Mitch. Um,
Mitch.
yeah, I didn't expect that to be exciting at all. I thought it was going to be two lumbering men past their prime, just kind of slugging it out here and there. But they were very active and moving around the whole time. Like they looked good, especially Little Nog. I didn't expect him to be nearly as competitive, given he
I
lost the
thought he was
first two
going to look
fights.
terrible,
Yeah,
but he proved me wrong.
yeah, he looked promising, and so did Shogun. I mean, they might not be able to hang with the big dogs, but why not keep giving them the classics? You know what I mean? Like that. Those are
Yeah,
fun
well,
fights.
I think Minotauro is done now, but
Oh, he retired, didn't he?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Dude's 44. He looks way older than 44. He looks like he could be in his close
Yeah,
to 60s.
I could see that.
How old is Shogun? Let's see. Shogun's 38. Yeah, that sounds about right. I thought Shogun looked pretty damn good. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie. The, yeah, I didn't think. I thought it would be a depressing old guy fight, but it was not that. It was quite competitive, quite entertaining. Not it's not the old Pride days, of course, but hey, guys get older. What are you gonna do? Uh, I'm glad Minotauro is saying he's done now. Um, I wouldn't mind seeing Shogun retire soon. Uh, we'll see. But yeah, it wasn't a depressing old guy fight that I thought it would be. It was better than Gus and Verdun.
I think
That's
Shogun's
for sure.
again ready to just take that title right back from Jones. Could you imagine
Okay.
if Shogun
Okay.
fought his way up to
You
being
assume
a
John Jones will
contender?
ever fight again.
I mean, he's still technically the champ, so they haven't let go of him yet.
Yeah.
If they give him Reyes again, I would probably say Reyes would beat him. But then again, Jones is always really good in those rematches, so who knows?
hmm
That's a wild card.
So before we finish up, were there any standouts for
Oh,
you?
Kyle, let me tell you about my man Herb Dean.
Oh boy.
I feel like we should mention this just because
Yeah.
it doesn't happen too often. What was the first fight this happened in? Bozo
Tanner
versus
Bozer,
yeah,
Rafael Pessoa.
not Bozo. Okay, yeah, in that fight, clipped in the eye. Bozer clipped his
Illegal
opponent.
strike.
Illegal.
It was a punch.
Yeah, it was illegal. It was a very weird shot. I've never you don't see that too often. Like a glancing knuckle shot to the eye that completely floored his opponent, in which I
Yeah.
can't remember his name, even though you just said
Pessoa.
it. Yes, that guy. And completely covered up, unable to fight, and Herb Dean was just standing over watching, just like hanging out, having a good time. Didn't do anything about it for a good bit. You could argue it was a very late stoppage. And then the second fight that this controversy happened in was with some more fighters.
Trinaldo
Yeah,
and
Francisco Trinaldo
Herbert.
and
Jai Herbert.
Jai Herbert. It's a newer guy fighting an old vet, a classic
hmm
story. And he got clipped. I think you said it was an overhand right to the back of the head or side
It
of the
wasn't the
head.
back of the head. It was like the top of the head.
Yeah, and
It clipped him right on the top of the head.
yeah, and it floored
It was
Herbert.
a weird
It
punch.
floored him. It looked like he was out and
Stiff.
just trying to cover up, trying to survive. Francisco was like, I don't really want to hit him. He's like
hmm
not defending himself at all, and Herb was just standing there watching, and didn't do anything. So then Francisco's like, all right, I'll just start going. And he starts beating the fucking shit out of him on the ground, and Herb's like, follow my instructions, locker room. Herb starts having a seizure and not doing anything about the fight, and Dan Hardy starts flipping out, screaming at the top of his lungs, "Stop the fight! Stop the fight!" It scared me. I was not ready for that kind of audio spike, you can call it. And after Herb ended it shortly after, I guess they got into a big argument, and Herb was kind of like yelling at him and Dan was yelling at Herb or something
Yeah,
happened. You know more about that than I do. What
while
happened?
Paul Felder was recapping, they were going over replays. You could hear him get kind of distracted as there's yelling in the background, and you hear Dan say, "I'll do my job, you do yours," something along those lines. And I saw Dan say something. It was on like Instagram, Twitter, so on social media. He said something like, "I could do Herb's job, but he can never do mine," which I thought was a little.
Oh man,
I don't know.
that sounds emotional.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't hate this as much as everyone else did. I think it was. I think it was pretty bad. And we need to hold refs accountable for when they mess up, even when they're as great as Herb Dean is. You know, Herb is good like 99% of the time, but then he has those missteps. But all referees do. I think it's the hardest job in MMA aside from fighting it. I don't agree that Dan Hardy could do Herb's job.
I'd like to see it though.
I think Herb is a veteran and he's very well trained as a referee. He knows what he's doing. He messed up. I think Dan had a good, I don't disagree with Dan for getting angry. I think it was justified, but I don't know. There's something about this that I don't like from Dan Hardy. The attack on Herb Dean's character, I think, is a little, like,
yeah,
it comes off as a little petty.
I could see
Dan.
that.
I really like Dan Hardy, but he has these instances of being kind of petty. He was arguing with a 15-year-old on Twitter the other day. That was really cringy. Yeah, the 15-year-old kid is like, all his tweets were like misspelled, and he had Darren Till as his profile picture, which is so ironic because Darren is such a troll, like this kid was being.
Yeah.
And this kid was basically like, "You were an average fighter at best," and something along those lines. And Dan got offended.
That's fair.
Really,
it's a fair assessment. He was pretty average.
I
wouldn't say that to him, but I mean,
yeah, I mean, it just like, hey, okay, the kid was being shitty and stupid, but like, it's a kid, dude. You need to just brush that shit off,
Even if it wasn't, you can't listen to the fans like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that it's easier said than done to just not engage with that, but dude, it's a bad look. It's just a bad look for you, and I get that he cares about fighter safety. We all do, of course. You can't be a fan of mixed martial arts and not care about fighter safety. But I don't know, man. I don't think it was an overreaction, but none of it is a good look.
Yeah.
Right? Herb not doing his job properly is a bad look, and Dan's reaction, I think, is also a bad look. It felt a little bit like he was getting angry for the sake of getting angry, less like I don't want to say he didn't actually care, because who am I to say he didn't care, right? Like
but he seemed to care more than he should have, maybe. I don't know.
It's tough, because it's not like I want to say he didn't care, but almost like he took it as an excuse to just kind of blow up, and it came off as a little immature in some ways. I think there's ways to deal with this kind of stuff, and I don't think he handled it in the best way. You have a platform, you have a forum to really express yourself and express your feelings and express your knowledge and expertise on the sport and give good criticism. This didn't feel like very good criticism. It felt like he was just kind of yelling at the guy and provoked him, and then Herb was kind of just also instigated. And rather than I don't think Herb necessarily learns from this, right? Like, I don't think he goes back and thinks like, what could I have done better, and what could I do to improve in the future? That's probably part of what he's thinking about. But I also think he's thinking more about, man, Dan Hardy's a dick. I don't like that guy. You know,
Yeah.
like when you just kind of blow up like that and you get really aggressive with someone, you prevent them from actually learning from their mistake, and you kind of just force them to resent you. You know?
Yeah, and he did unnecessarily insert himself into the argument too. He didn't need to say like, "Oh, I could do your job." Like that doesn't really
Yeah,
help the situation at all, you know.
I didn't like that at all. That's very
Yeah,
childish.
the problem I saw with it, not that Dan did the right thing here, but I just didn't like how it was two fights back to back like that with Herb
Yeah.
reffing. That was like a pattern, you could say. He's clearly having an off day.
Yeah,
But that
he
being
messed up.
said, I don't think Dan needed to go and provoke him a little more. You know what I mean? I think the people do that enough with refs. They get tormented online.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, you gotta just kind of there's ways to deal with this kind of stuff. So we see, uh, actual
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah.
Like after the Anthony Smith Glover Teixeira fight, Jason Herzog handled that criticism so well.
100%.
So well.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, he definitely had people online yelling at him and stuff. But it's different when it's some idiot on Twitter and the commentator, just freaking the hell out on you. I don't think Herb is going to handle this criticism too well. Another classic example of when he messed up was Robbie Lawler, Ben Askren. But I feel like he probably learned something from that because people were very empathetic towards it. Even Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler was empathetic towards it moments after it happened because Robbie Lawler is a fucking awesome dude. And he was basically like, hey, man, you're one of the best. You messed up. It's all good. Now, I get that fighter safety comes first and we need to protect these people. And, something really disastrous could happen when referees just kind of fumble like this. But
I mean, if you look at that situation though, and if you're a ref and you grab a fighter's arm and it's limp as they're being choked, I cannot blame Herb for that.
No, the Robbie Lawler Ben Askren thing was way more understandable than this. Like if you tell me like, oh, I knew Robbie Lawler wasn't out the whole thing, you're a fucking liar.
His
dude.
arm was limp.
In the moment like that, you're a liar if you say you thought he wasn't out. Maybe you didn't know, maybe you weren't sure, but when you're a ref, you don't have time to just not be sure.
No, yeah, and it's those seconds that matter that will damage the fighter permanently. Yeah. You don't want to allow that to happen. You got to make the call.
99% of people would have done the same thing.
It's better safe than sorry. Like the fighter might lose, but then again, now you're preventing the brain damage, the lack of oxygen getting to the head. That's big, Seconds matter in that regard, you know what I mean? So I could see it. But I didn't think they were as bad as Dan Hardy made it out to be. Most of the shots were hitting the gloves anyway. It's not like all of them were getting through. So
and Francisco was holding back.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. I don't know. So glad to end this on a high note. Looking good.
Wait.
Oh wait,
I have a few people I want to shout out from this card that I think did outstanding work. Khamzat Chimaev. I think I'm saying his name right. Wow. I don't have a whole lot to say other than he's going to be a serious problem at welterweight. A serious problem. He might be welterweight's Khabib. We shall see. It's still a little early to tell. We might be jumping on that hype train a little soon with Khamzat Chimaev. But he looked terrific last night. Paul Craig had an awesome off-the-back submission. He was a triangle choke. Paul Craig might be one of the best submission artists off his back. Certainly at light heavyweight, like without a doubt at light heavyweight and in the whole or in the greater UFC. He's one of the best submission artists off his back. That dude is always fucking choking people from his back. It's interesting to see how he will go to his back so willingly. We don't see that style employed much. We see more of a, people like Khamzat, people who are wrestling where they, try to get top control and really land some devastating ground and pound. That Khabib style, Paul Craig style is quite unique. And we saw some great striking in his last outing. Didn't get to see that last night, but he's saying that his striking is improving quite a bit, and I believe him. I'm a Paul Craig fan, and I'm hoping he really climbs the light heavyweight ladder a bit more. Who else? Tanner Boser. I'm a huge fan of Tanner Boser, man. I'm really liking this guy. Of course, we already mentioned this fight after the controversial finish, but Tanner Boser is just doing everything right. The dude has a great personality. He has a very unique look to him. He looks like a big Canadian bear missing his front tooth. He's funny. He's charismatic, and he is sneaky fast for a heavyweight, and has some terrific footwork. I thought Mavzar Ivolev, he had some terrific striking against Mike Grundy. This is the prelim middle or featherweight card I'm looking at. His striking was super precise, super crisp. He dodged some sneaky submission attempts from Mike Grundy in the beginning of that fight and showed some terrific resilience, and then just put together some awesome striking. Then you had Tom Aspinall. Everyone's saying he looks like Frank Mir. Dude absolutely executed a can named Jake Collier. If you haven't seen it yet, look up a picture of this Jake guy at middleweight. Now he's at heavyweight. The difference is...
What's his name?
His name's Jake Collier. I think I'm saying that right. Collier.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He does look like Frank Mir.
Yeah. Well, no, Tom Aspinall looks like Frank Mir,
This
the guy
guy
that beat
fucking
him.
looks like him, too.
But Jake, Jake, that dude didn't look good last night. That was a 45-second
I would argue that
fight.
Collier looks more like him than Aspinall. I'm looking at a
Okay.
side-by-side picture of them. You gotta check
I-
your
oh,
facts.
Okay, no, I'm looking at, if you just Googled him and you're looking at middleweight Jake. He does
he's at
look
heavy,
more
okay,
like him.
Yeah.
Now he doesn't look good, man. You look at him at heavyweight. Look at a picture of him from last night. The guy looks horrifically out of shape. Probably shouldn't have been in that fight, but hey, dude wanted a paycheck, so can't fault him there. And then the last person I wanted to mention was Jesse Ronson. Had a really nice first round submission against Nicholas Dalby, and what looked to be a very dangerous fight for him initially. Then he came out and just absolutely starched him with a submission. It was really nice work. Really, really nice work. Last night was a terrific card.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now maybe I'm a little my appetite was a bit soured by Bellator the night before, so maybe I would take next to anything UFC related, but very much enjoyed last night. Thought it was a terrific card. Glad I didn't have to pay for it. It was on ESPN Plus.
Especially after the Davidson Figueiredo and all those other fun cards that week.
Yeah.
That they were rough. I don't even remember the first
depressing.
one. But I mean, who cares? Last night, great card. It's all that matters. It's all uphill from here. Anything else?
That's probably not true at all.
Anything else you wanted to mention, mate?
No, man.
Aussie.
I gotta go eat. I'm starving, bro.
What are you, a human?
Yeah.
Well, with that, this has been Caffeinated Combat. I think this is number 11, if I'm correct.
Holy shit.
We're getting up there.
Is that a milestone?
No.
Probably not.
Just a nice number, It's
11's
actually
a pretty
one
good
more
number.
than 10. A lot of people don't know
Shout
that.
out to Stranger Things.
All right, that's it.
That was a bad joke.
That's it.
That was a real bad joke.
I gotta get a new fucking partner here.
Ah,
Jesus
shit.
Christ. Anyway, thank you for watching, Ren. We'll see you next week.
We always do a terrific job with these endings.
We'll see you next week, Ren. Have a good one.